Today on AMR, de nuevo una vez más, Trump is coming back to the White House. His historic win against VP Harris will bring him as the second former president to win non-consecutive terms. President Joe Biden will host Trump at the White House this coming Wednesday, bringing back the tradition Trump broke. The MAGA fan base has been celebrating since his re-election, but the disgusting and unbelievable comments have begun. Nancy Pelosi blaming Biden for election loss as finger-pointing intensifies, saying they could have won if he got out way earlier. And there's so much more. I'm Anthony Martinez, and here's my report. Welcome to the premiere of Anthony Martinez Reports. Don't mind me being a little bit sick today. So many people have gotten sick around me. Y hoy me ha tocado a mí. I did not want to push back the first episode again. But we have a lot of news to get to. Tuesday night and Wednesday morning was a historic election for Donald Trump because we have a RightNow news projection that the elect 47th president of the United States of America is Donald J. Trump, winning a second non-consecutive term. Solo hay un ganador. There's only one winner, and half of the nation is mad, sad, and devastated with Harris's loss. He is the second president to win a non-consecutive term under Cleveland, who was the 22nd and 24th president of the United States. Kamala Harris conceded to the election during her speech on Wednesday after the election defeat.
My allegiance to all three is why I am here to say, while I concede this election, I do not concede the fight that fueled this campaign.
There are photos of Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris sitting next to each other looking sad. I don't know if they're right after this election, but it did make me wonder, how do they feel after losing to Trump? I mean, both of them lost to Trump. Hicieron lo mismo. They did the same thing. They had the same end result. You know, it must be a devastating thing because they both lost against Trump. They both were the ticket nominee for the Democrats. And I do wonder if or when is the election that another female will take the top of the ticket for the Democrats. But projections of the election came in real early. We expected to wait a bit, expecting results from Wednesday, let's say midday, to even the weekend like we did last time. But this win came as early as 1 a.m. Eastern Time. The LA Times wrote an article, in quote, News Nation is the first TV network to call presidential race for Donald Trump thanks to Decision Desk HQ. LA Times reports News Nation, which used data from Decision Desk, to call the race for Trump at 1:22 a.m. Eastern Time after giving the Republican 19 electoral votes from Pennsylvania and 3 from Alaska. Fox News later followed up at about 30 minutes later at 1:47 a.m. Eastern after awarding Wisconsin's 10 electoral votes to Trump. Watch as each major news network projected Trump's win. You know, a lot of the what we call more left-leaning networks did call the race more into the morning. We were seeing 4, 5, 6 in the morning when these projections were made, while News Nation and Fox News had them way earlier.
It is just after 1:22 in the morning Eastern Time, and this is the biggest call of the night. Decision Desk HQ can now project that former President Donald Trump will be our next president, the 47th president of the United States. DDHQ projects Trump will win the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
The Fox News Decision Desk can now officially project that Donald Trump will become the 47th president of the United States.
The former president's comeback will be complete with a win in Wisconsin, a state that he narrowly lost 4 years ago. He is now the second president in U.S. history to win non-consecutive terms.
Yes, we can.
NBC News projecting that Wisconsin was won by Donald Trump, and therefore, as you see on your screen, we are now projecting that the next president of the United States is Donald Trump.
He will reclaim the White House. The 45th president of the United States will become the 47th president of the United States, being elected for non-consecutive terms, a feat that has not been achieved since Grover Cleveland did it back in 1892.
Kornacki,
but they
I just have to jump. Steve Kornacki, I just have to jump in. And you've been predicting this. We've been waiting for it. And we do have some breaking news from the decision desk. NBC News can now project that Donald Trump has won the state of Wisconsin, which means he is the winner of this race and will return to the White House as this country's 47th president. And for so many of you watching right now, that news is, to say the least, a lot to digest. I understand that personally. After he lost 4 years ago, he refused to accept the outcome and incited a violent insurrection on our nation's capital. He's campaigned while facing criminal indictments related to his efforts to overturn the 2020 results, and he's run as a convicted felon. During this campaign, he has also promised to essentially be an authoritarian leader, to use power like no American president ever has before, and wield that power to go after his political enemies. This is a man who's also bragged about overturning Roe v. Wade and stripping away women's bodily autonomy. He's promised to conduct mass deportations to crack down on the rights of millions of Americans. Donald Trump is an anti-democratic force.
We could have some news shortly about whether Donald Trump has officially reached the threshold to be named the next president-elect of the United States. We have not heard from Vice President Kamala Harris. Her campaign co-chair spoke to supporters saying go home for the night. And CBS News now projects that Donald Trump is the winner in Wisconsin. That gives him the number of electoral votes he needs to become the 47th president of the United States. This is an incredible moment in American history for Donald Trump, who faced a number of challenges in this contest. It was an election unlike any of us have ever covered.
A life unlike any we've ever covered.
It is now official. CNN projects that Donald Trump has been elected president, defeating Vice President Kamala Harris and making a political comeback unlike any in modern American politics. Now, we can make this projection now because CNN projects that Donald Trump has won Wisconsin. You can see right there, currently ahead by 30,000 votes with 99% of the vote in. Mr. Trump is only the second former president in U.S. history to be reelected to the White House. He will return to office after 2 impeachments in his first term, followed by unprecedented criminal indictments and felony convictions. Mr. Trump scoring a landmark victory as he now heads back to power, leading a politically divided nation again.
This is an ABC News election update. Now reporting, David Muir.
Good morning. It's now 5:35 here in the East. We are allowing all of our stations across the country to join us now with the breaking news. We are projecting at this hour the 47th president of the United States, Donald Trump, will be elected to return to the White House. Not consecutive terms. We mentioned a moment ago as we were on our air with our coverage, the first since Grover Cleveland to serve non-consecutive presidential terms. Donald Trump returning to the White House as the 47th president of the United States. He does so with Wisconsin now in his win column.
After Trump's win, Harris conceding the race, new reports tell us that Biden will host Trump at the White House on Wednesday. A White House press secretary said that they will meet at 11 a.m. in the Oval Office. Both Harris and Biden have committed to a peaceful transfer of power. Unlike the 2020 election when Trump didn't admit and conceal to Biden's win and did not have a peaceful transfer of power, We will see how that meeting goes. I wonder if we will get what the conversation is like. I don't know if press will be allowed in there, but I know Trump is excited since he won. There's no really... I know Biden won't be any rude to him. I don't feel like they would be rude to each other unless they're debating each other, but, who knows? We will see how the meeting goes. But now to Nancy Pelosi, who is pointing fingers full blast and blaming the Democrats on how they executed their campaigns for the election and how they could have prevented a loss. Here's what she told the New York Times.
Had the president gotten out sooner, there may have been other candidates in the race. The anticipation was that if the president were to step aside, that there would be an open primary. And as I say, Kamala may have, I think she would have done well in that and been stronger going forward. But we don't know that. That didn't happen. We live with what happened. And because the president endorsed Kamala Harris immediately, that really made it almost impossible to have a primary at that time. If it had been much earlier, it would have been different.
Which is true. The outcome of the election could have been different if Joe Biden did not leave the race as late as he did. I mean, the man dropped out at the end of July, giving 4 months before election week and weeks before the DNC. Pelosi was not opposed of Biden running again, but it wasn't until she became one of the people who strongly advised him to drop out. She is right. Biden leaving so late, but also fully endorsing Kamala Harris so fast was one of the biggest backlash on the Democratic ticket for their success. I mean, Harris did have a successful campaign for 107 days. She got celebrity endorsement and a lot of, it was the Brat Summer of TikTok fame that Kamala got that we saw. But it's not what we saw election night. It wasn't the win. The win she got from the celebrities and TikTok was not the win on election night. There were a lot of mistakes in her campaign that could have been the main or sole reason that it failed her on election. La historia siempre es así, where each campaign will have their mistakes, but I feel like this election was more unique in many ways on both sides, but campaign-wise on Harris. Going back to Trump, on Thursday, he named Cold Campaign Chair Susan Willis as his White House Chief of Staff. She will be the first woman to take in that role. Many via X congratulating Susan for her new role, like Trump Jr. and her former boss, and among others. Of course, Trump is starting to build his administration team, as many left after his first term and many don't want to come back. We know that we're getting Elon Musk and RFK Jr. as part of the administration. We'll see how that will all kind of plan out and kind of smooth its way through the next 4 years. Trump's win did not come as a pretty picture, and I'm not talking about how the Democrats reacted. I'm talking about how MAGA supporters took the win and what they said to women as Trump won. This is not a light topic, and I'm mainly going to talk about Nick Fuentes, a proud white nationalist who infamously had dinner with Trump and has openly mocked women. It's very disturbing. Here's what he said.
The feel when you're totally not pressed. The feel when we control your bodies. Hey, bitch, we control your bodies. Guess what? Guys win again, okay? Men win again. And yes, we control your bodies. Hi, I'm your Republican congressman. Hi, I'm your Republican congressman. It's your body, my choice. And men, women again. Men win again. There will never, ever be a female president. Never. There will never be a female president, ever. It's over. Glass ceiling. Dude, it's a ceiling made of bricks. You will never break it. Your stupid face keeps hitting the brick ceiling. We will keep you down forever. You will never control your own bodies. You will never be the president of the global empire. Never gonna happen, sweetie. Your body, our choice.
Your body, my choice. Those are the horrible and disgusting comments he said. Yes, this is the man who has had dinner with Trump. He had dinner with Trump in November of 2022. Ellos dicen y ellos hablan, and they don't understand how hurtful these comments are to women. I bring this up not only about how wrong these comments are and how hurtful they are, but it kind of ties back to one of Trump's main campaign messages. Like when he said he will protect women whether they like it or not, especially when he's proudly said that he did overturn Roe versus Wade. Take a look.
I'm president. I want to protect the women of our country. I said, well, I'm going to do it whether the women like it or not. I'm going to protect them.
That or the Access Hollywood tape, and even how he talked about his own daughter if she wasn't his daughter. But going back to Fuentes, he posted on the same day on X the phrase, "Your body, my choice, forever," which the reaction of many men was even more disturbing and disgusting. They were reposting and agreeing with the comment, but others tweeting back and firing back with how disgusted they were. Even Fuentes getting doxxed with his alleged phone number and home address getting leaked. I saw some few posts of women telling and saying to their boyfriends, todo ha terminado, that they were breaking up with them, they were leaving them for agreeing with his comments. Fuentes also said in a different video, quote, I excitedly declare since Donald Trump became president that women's bodies are now under my control. He goes on to say, politically obsessed with controlling women's body. I'm going to tell them what they are allowed to do with them. It's my decision. We as males, we as men control their bodies, and they have no say in what matters. Then he goes off to list what women would not have control and men would instead. You know, he states abortion, what they wear, what they eat, how they look, from hair to their makeup, of how much they wear of makeup. They will control where they live, when they can leave, and with who, when they can go to bed. He says this will take effect under Project 2025's plan, which Trump says he has no connections to the plan, and also a disclaimer that Fuentes has nothing to do with Trump's upcoming administration as well. But it's gotten as bad as young boys telling girls at school the phrase, your body, my choice. Here's a mom's reaction on TikTok.
This is a little bit of a tough conversation, but it's one that I feel 1000% needs to be had. A friend of mine told me today that kids at her son's high school are now going around taunting the teenage girls, saying, your body, my choice. I'm just going to let that sink in for a second. That we now have high school aged boys going around to teenage girls telling them their body, my choice. I hope that makes you as angry as it makes me as a mom of a teenage daughter, regardless if you have teenage kids or not. The fact that we now have not just Delulu men who think that mantra and are going around spouting that mantra, but we now have high school boys, teenage boys, taunting other teenage girls with this mantra. So something that started as an abortion issue has now moved into a sexual assault issue. And I hope this makes you as angry as it makes me, because this isn't necessarily a political issue. This shouldn't be a red versus blue or a Democrat versus Republican or any of that type of thing. We're talking about sexual assault, and this should be a black and white. This is not an okay issue. However, here we are. This is my plea as a mom to all the other moms out there. We may not be able to change the world, but we can definitely influence our own households, and we can definitely set the tone for what is okay and what is not okay with our children. So whether or not you have a teenager or if you have younger kids, this is our moment to talk with our children about what is okay for them to do to somebody else's body and what is okay for somebody else to do to their body and what is not okay. If you have sons, this is your moment. This is your moment to go talk to them about this, because I know without a doubt they're going to hear about it from someone. If it's not you, they're going to hear it from somewhere. And if you have daughters, please reaffirm to them that their body is their choice.
RightNow News can verify any messages or reports made public by any schools or school districts about addressing these comments. A report by ISD says that comments of repeal the 19th, your body, my choice, and get back in the kitchen have skyrocketed since election day. So why do I bring this up? For many, many reasons. One of them is how disgusting and offensive these comments are towards women, and that men like him and many MAGA supporters and many outside of MAGA see women as their property, as an object, as a toy they can just play around, and not as a human. As a nation, we have long left that in the past and moved forward from that. It's the idea that young boys can find these types of comments and videos that push women to the ground and think it's acceptable to say and do to women and girls in their lives, and think it's something part of life and that it's normal. It's crazy to see this happening to us men, even some women saying that the 19th Amendment should be repealed, which if you know, the 19th Amendment gives the woman the right to vote. You know, as a nation, women have fought up to have more rights, example, being able to vote. And it's disgusting that there are still so many people who agree that women should have little to no say in anything and have no say on how they're treated. But the message, and to get simple point across, it's disgusting that these comments are happening, And I will say, educate yourself. If you have boys, educate them on how these comments are harmful, painful, and wrong to say to anyone, and especially women. Now, I want to move on. That was a little bit of a harder subject to talk about. But I want to move on to a CNN interview between Jim Jordan, the Republican Congress of the state of Ohio, and CNN's Dana Bash. This interview caught my attention because one of the things I have questioned is, especially now since Trump got the victory, is why do they think their election is fraud? Like in 2016, the 2016 election, Trump believed there was fraud before election day. You know, he ended up winning that election. In 2020, especially after he lost, he continued those comments. But to be clear, there has been no evidence to suggest election fraud happened at all. In 2024, he continued his beliefs of this current election that happened and 2020, that there was fraud and fraud was happening, until he knew he was going to win on Tuesday night. He then went quiet. Watch as Jim Jordan gets questioned on if the election was fair and free and how he stumbles over his answer.
Okay, let's talk about the election, because in the run-up to the election, even on election night itself, Donald Trump baselessly accused Democrats of cheating. As soon as the results started to come in and showed them going his way, he stopped. Silence. Nothing about that. I haven't seen you or your colleagues claiming any election irregularities, no rampant voting fraud this time. It seems to me that Republicans claim voting fraud and election integrity when you lose and not when you win.
No, again, as I said before, this election, I think, was the greatest political comeback we've ever seen. He did something that even Teddy Roosevelt couldn't do, for goodness sake. And the country.
But you think it was a free and fair election?
No. This election, you just interviewed the Latino, restaurant owner or a restaurant worker, and he said he was tired of all the woke stuff. This election was real simple. You had back-to-back administrations. We got something we very seldom get in American history, American politics. Back-to-back administrations now running for the top job, and people could do a direct comparison. And they said, we like what we had under President Trump versus.
But last time around,
we like the safe streets versus the record
last
crime.
time around, your leader claimed that there were problems with
secure
fraud.
border versus the open border.
Right, those are policies.
That's what this election was about.
That's totally fair. But last time around, it wasn't so much about the policy differences or the personality differences. There were false claims about election fraud when Donald Trump lost. This time, Donald Trump won, and you think the election was free and fair. Do you see there's a little bit of a...
No, I think the Democrats got to ask, why did
there?
we go from getting 81 million to getting 70 million? What happened to those 10 million people? Maybe they need to... Maybe it's not smart to run an election where you have no vision, no record to run on.
Do you believe
that
the 2024...
the other side names?
Do you believe that the 2024 election was free and fair?
I do.
And why was it different from 2020 when he lost? Is that the only difference?
No, there were concerns about 2020 with all the mail-in voting that happened. Pennsylvania had like 2-point-something million mail-in ballots come in without any signature verification, which was required under Pennsylvania statute. So there were all kinds of concerns with how the 2020 election was carried out.
There was absolutely
the biggest question Democrats need to be asking, what happened to the 10 million voters that Joe Biden got that didn't come out for Kamala Harris? A bunch of them, President Trump's numbers were right up where they were in 2020, but the Democrats were much lower. I think it's because they had no vision, no record to run on, and they just wanted to call everyone names. Turns out when you tell people, oh, you're fascist, racist, deplorable garbage, they don't like that. And then when you use lawfare to go after their candidate, they don't like that either. That's why they came out. So on top of the economy, on top of the price of gas, on top of the inflation, that's why they voted for President Trump.
We're out of time.
It basically shows that if it doesn't go their way, there is some type of fraud, or que la regaron in some way, that something had to be rigged because they lost. Again, to clarify, there's no evidence of any type of fraud during the 2020 election, to clarify again. But it went through many courts. Los jueces nos dirán if there's anything to be on the lookout. It's suspicious, but there's no clear or any sort of evidence to dictate that. Trump has said he won the election, but then, now he won again his second term. But now, since he won this election, he says he would get his enemies who had a part in the supposed election fraud of 2020, including Biden and Harris, to be jailed, trialed, and convicted of fraud. As well, to mention, Jim said how the Democrats have a problem with name-calling, even though the name-calling was and is very, very strong on the Republican side, even with horrible comments made by MAGA officials, supporters, and even by Trump himself during the campaign that were targeted to Harris and Biden. But now, before we go, I do want to end off on something more lighter of a report, a little bit more funny. Ted Cruz won again in the state of Texas. Some people were shocked that that happened, others wanted him back. And when he spoke to accept his win, he went to say that he wants Trump to be reelected. Mind you, this was before Trump's win was official or declared by any network or anyone. Anyways, as he and his crowd clapped for Trump to win back the White House, his daughter had a different reaction. Take a look.
And I believe and I hope and pray that Donald Trump will be reelected as President of the United States. And I believe, and I hope and pray, that Donald Trump will be reelected as President of the United States.
Ted Cruz's daughter is seen not as happy and not clapping at all. She's allegedly telling her mom not to clap as well. After the clip went viral, comments praising Caroline poured in from social media. She had also made a video a few years back saying that she did not like how everything about her went back in connection to her father, because her father is a well-known person, especially in the state of Texas. But with that, I'm gonna end today's report. Thank you for watching the first episode. Y tú ya sabes muy bien to subscribe, hit the like button. Make sure to follow us online at Anthony on RNN or RightNow News. And wherever you get your podcast, you can listen to this as well, or watch it like you are maybe right now, or you're listening to it. I don't know. But I'll see you for another episode of Anthony Martinez Reports.